Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. In the wilds of Colorado, a wounded ex-firefighter builds his dream home, alone, off the grid. But when a shadowy HOA shows up with forged maps and demolition crews, his quiet retreat becomes a war zone. They came to steal his land. They didn't know he was ready to fight. I never expected a pile of dirt and rock on a forgotten Colorado hillside to mean so damn much to me. But after 2 years of hauling stone, pouring concrete with my own hands, and wrestling lumber until my arms screamed, this place had become more than just land. It was mine, not just by deed, but by every scar, every pulled muscle, every splinter I still hadn't removed. 10 acres of raw, sloped earth with a view of the valley to the west, bought legally, fair and square, through the county auction after the last developer went belly up. I was there the day the bid closed, sitting in front of a borrowed laptop in a motel room with a busted heater, back braced and pain pills untouched. I'd earned it, all of it. I'd served 20 years in the Denver Fire Department, saw my share of burnt-out homes, shattered lives, and wreckage people couldn't recover from. My own wreck came during a warehouse fire, collapsed beam, crushed spine, and the beginning of the end for my time in the uniform. After a half year in rehab and 2 back surgeries, the chief handed me a plaque and a handshake. The city handed me a compensation check, and I handed myself a second chance. No family, no obligations, just me and a piece of land nobody wanted, until I did. The lot was in Park County, about 40 minutes from the nearest gas station, and just remote enough that GPS didn't know what to do with it. Forest on 3 sides, a dry creek bed down below, and no paved road within a half mile. I remember the first time I walked the boundary, boots crunching old pine needles, wind howling through skeletal aspens, and thought, yeah, this'll do. I set up a tent, then a tool shed, then a slab, then walls. I started with the basics, clearing the slope, trenching a line for utilities, laying out the frame with a rented transit level. I poured the footing myself, 12 yards of concrete in a back-breaking weekend with nothing but a mixer, a wheelbarrow, and a playlist of old Springsteen albums. When my back gave out, I crawled into the van, popped a cold pack and a bourbon, and slept like the dead. That became the rhythm. Pain, build, rest, repeat. I lived in a trailer while the bones of the house took shape. Over time, I raised 2x6s into walls, fitted the joists, strung wiring like veins through the skeleton. I'd built my fireplace with riverstone scavenged from a nearby dry bed, 1 rock at a time. I didn't hire help unless I absolutely had to, roofing, for example, or concrete delivery, but the rest was all mine. I framed the windows, ran the plumbing, even hand-stained the floors when the weather finally turned warm enough for ventilation. For months, there wasn't a soul nearby, no traffic, no footpaths, no signs of human life besides me. I liked it that way. Every once in a while, I'd see tire tracks near the base of the trail, off-roaders, maybe hunters, but no one came up the hill. I posted a private property sign, mostly to make it official. It didn't even face a real road, just a dirt track winding up through the brush. No one ever came, not until late spring, second year, when the house was just about done. Drywall up, fixtures installed, exterior painted with a shade of slate blue that looked real damn good against the tree line. That was the morning a dark gray SUV pulled up to my gate, engine humming low, the logo on the side catching a glint of sun I almost didn't notice. Whispering Ridge HOA in gold block letters. At first I thought it was some delivery truck with the wrong address. Then 3 people got out, 2 women and 1 man, all in matching reflective vests and holding clipboards like weapons. I walked down to the gate, wiped drywall dust off my hands, and waited. The one in front, a sharp-featured woman with a bleached bob and sunglasses too big for her face, spoke first. "Are you the owner of this property?" I nodded. "Yep, Roy Milner, you are?" "Karen O'Brien," she said crisply, "President of the Whispering Ridge Homeowners Association. We need to speak with you about your construction." My brows furrowed. "Construction? What about it?" "You're in violation of our community architectural code. Your structure was not submitted for review or approval. Additionally, your fencing and grading appear non-compliant. Do you have your permit packet?" I blinked, then laughed. "Lady, this ain't in any community. I bought this land from the county. There was nothing here but coyote scat and a rusted-out pipe when I arrived." She tilted her sunglasses down, gave me a look like I was a troublesome student who hadn't turned in an essay. This parcel falls under the Whispering Ridge HOA districting map. We've had jurisdiction here since 1999. Not according to the deed, I said flatly. I've got it right inside, along with the auction contract, the title insurance, and the county assessor's parcel map. The guy next to her had already started snapping pictures of the house, the gate, my truck. The second woman stood back, typing something into a tablet. Sir, Karen said, this construction appears to be in flagrant violation. I strongly suggest you cease all work immediately until this is sorted legally. You're on my property without permission, I said. I suggest you cease. Her jaw tightened. You'll be receiving formal notice. I watched them climb back into the SUV and drive off, the tires kicking up dust like a warning shot. That evening, I found a certified envelope duct taped to the front gate. Inside, a letter from Whispering Ridge HOA demanding demolition of the unauthorized dwelling within 30 days or face escalating fines not to exceed $500 per day. I stared at it, then laughed so hard I nearly dropped the damn paper in the fire pit. They had no idea who they were messing with. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was scared, hell no, but because my mind was already drafting letters, piecing together legal references, and replaying every second of that encounter at the gate. I've had buildings collapse around me in burning warehouses. 3 people with clipboards weren't about to shake me, but it wasn't the confrontation that kept me awake. It was the sheer absurdity of it. These people rolled up out of nowhere, told me I was violating their standards, and expected me to tear down a house I built with my own blood and vertebrae because of a homeowners association I'd never even heard of. By morning, I had the deed, the auction certificate, the county parcel map, and my notarized property transfer all laid out on my work table like playing cards before a fight. I scanned everything into PDFs and sent a formal cease and desist letter to the return address listed on the notice, Whispering Ridge HOA, P.O. Box in Fairplay. I CC'd the county recorder's office, the building department, and the sheriff's department just for good measure. I wasn't just documenting my side, I was warning them. You picked the wrong damn hill to die on. That afternoon, I called the county planning department and spoke to a guy named Derek. Nice enough, bit of a cough. Sounded tired of his job. I explained the situation, rattled off my parcel number, and asked if he had any record of Whispering Ridge having legal jurisdiction over my lot. There was a long pause as he typed. Then, nope, you're outside their boundary by a good few hundred feet. They must be misreading the map. Misreading my ass. Derek confirmed the land had gone into county hands after the original developer went bankrupt in '05. No liens. No covenants, clean transfer. He even emailed me a copy of the GIS overlay to prove it. I thanked him, saved the file, and started thinking about next steps. The next morning, while I was finishing insulation in the upstairs bedroom, I heard the crunch of tires again. This time, it wasn't an SUV. It was a white county vehicle with building enforcement written on the side in faded blue lettering. A man stepped out, mid-40s, paunchy, clipboard in hand. I met him at the foot of the porch. You Roy Milner? He asked. Yep. You the building inspector? Tom Cavanaugh. He nodded, flipping open his folder. We received a complaint about unauthorized residential construction on a parcel listed under HOA oversight. I exhaled slowly. Let me guess. Whispering Ridge. Yup. He scratched the back of his neck. Mind if I take a look around? You got a warrant? He blinked. Well, no, but... I held up my hand. Tom, don't take this personal, but I'm not letting anyone on this land without cause. I've already filed a response to their complaint, and I've got full documentation if you'd like to see it right here. To his credit, he didn't argue. We sat at the picnic table outside while I laid everything out. My deed, auction transfer, GIS maps, even a copy of the building permits I'd pulled for the septic and electrical. He flipped through the paperwork, chewing his lip. I gotta say, this all looks solid. Honestly, this complaint shouldn't have triggered a site visit. HOA's been real aggressive lately. That's one way of putting it, I said. I'll file a note, he added. Pending further review, I see no violations, but you'll probably want to talk to an attorney just in case they push it. I told him I was already ahead of him. He left without stepping past the gate, which I appreciated, but the sense of calm didn't last long. The next day, I received an overnight letter, this time from a law firm out of Denver representing Whispering Ridge HOA. It was printed on ivory paper with fancy embossing and about as much legal weight as a wet napkin. The letter accused me of non-compliance with community standards, cited some obscure zoning code that didn't apply to unincorporated land, and ended with a delightful ultimatum: demolish the structure or face legal action. They also included a copy of what they claimed was the HOA district boundary map. And wouldn't you know it, my parcel was outlined in bright red ink like a bullseye. Problem was, the map was a low-res scan with no official seal, no date, and no identifying coordinates. Just a circle scribbled in crayon over a blurry hillside. I scanned that letter, highlighted the BS parts in yellow, and forwarded everything to Caitlin Johnson, a property attorney out of Colorado Springs. I'd spoken to her once years back when I almost bought a foreclosure in Woodland Park. She remembered me, mostly because I'd shown up with a binder thicker than her paralegals. I explained what was happening. She didn't even hesitate. Roy, this sounds like classic boundary fraud. I'll start pulling plats and historical records. In the meantime, don't respond directly to them again. Let me. Good, because I was getting the urge to respond with my boot. By the end of the week, I'd installed 2 motion-activated cameras on the driveway, changed the locks, and started recording every vehicle that came within 100 feet of the property line. I wasn't scared. I was pissed. These people weren't just annoying. They were trying to rewrite land history with a printer and a marker. So I did what any sane person would do. I printed a new sign and posted it at the edge of the trail where their SUV had pulled in last time. It read, "Private property, not HOA land. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Bring a warrant." Under that, in smaller print, P.S. I built this house. I'll tear yours down first. I thought things might calm down for a bit after Caitlin stepped in. She sent a formal response to the HOA's lawyer, complete with attachments, references to the Colorado revised statutes, and a politely worded promise to pursue sanctions if they didn't knock it off. I figured they'd back off once they realized I had teeth behind me, but Whispering Ridge wasn't playing checkers. They were playing a long, greasy game of Monopoly, and they were just getting warmed up. I was in town picking up some flashing and a few boxes of outlet covers. Last touches for the master suite when my phone buzzed. Camera notification, motion detected at the main gate. I pulled over and opened the app. 2 people in orange vests, one crouching by the post, the other snapping photos. Not HOA folks this time. County vehicle parked nearby. I recognized the logo, Planning and Zoning Division, a fresh knot twisted in my gut. I raced home, a solid 30 minutes of cursing at traffic and back roads. When I got there, they were gone. But the damage had already been done. A giant red placard was stapled to my gate. Stop work order, unauthorized structure, do not enter. There was a bright yellow sticker under it too, smaller but worse. Order to cease construction, pending investigation, signed, stamped, and dated by the county building department. I ripped it off and stomped to the house, hard hammering. Another sign was on my front porch window. Same message. Unauthorized, restricted, subject to legal penalties if work continued. They'd hit me while I was gone. No warning, no email, no courtesy call. Just bureaucratic assault, HOA style. I called Caitlin immediately. She answered on the second ring. "They slapped a stop work order on me," I snapped. "Said it's unauthorized. You told me the permits were solid." "They are," she said, instantly alert. "What triggered the order? Your friends at Whispering Ridge must have filed something new." I wasn't even there. She sighed, then muttered, "Okay, I'll dig into it. Don't touch the sign or do any construction until I say. Take photos of everything. Front, back, timestamps." Too late for that first part, but I didn't argue. I spent the rest of the day documenting every angle, photographing the placards, even filming a walkthrough. Then I sat on the porch, staring out at the trees while the sky turned amber with dusk, and I tried to figure out how the hell I'd gone from building my dream home to defending it like a fortress. The next morning, Caitlin called with an edge in her voice I hadn't heard before. "Roy," she said, "you're not going to believe this. Try me." Whispering Ridge filed a map revision with the county 2 weeks ago. They claim it's a re-recording of a lost 1996 boundary map. In that version, your parcel is included in their jurisdiction. I almost dropped the phone. They what? They filed it quietly through an expedited submission window attached to a restoration of historical plats motion. That means the planning office flagged it as administrative and skipped public notice. So they slipped it past the system. Exactly. I was pacing now, heart pounding. My deed predates this so-called revision by almost 2 years. Doesn't matter to the drones processing documents, the system just sees the most recent plat. That's what triggered the stop work order. I stopped in my tracks. They used a fake map to shut down my build. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, I've seen this trick before. It's rare, but if there's collusion with someone in the registrar's office, they can forge plats, refile, and backdate records, especially on older unincorporated land where the survey boundaries are vague. I clenched my jaw so hard I felt my teeth creak. I want a full analysis, a forensic check, overlay the GIS records with the new map. I want the coordinates broken down, font spacing, metadata, everything. I'm already on it, she said, and I'm calling in someone special, retired federal geodetic technician, name's Elmer. He lives for this crap. I hung up and went to the garage, spent the next 2 hours welding a reinforced bracket to my gate and wiring in an audible alarm in case anyone tried to cut through. It wasn't paranoia, it was pattern recognition. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the fireplace I'd built with my own damn hands, staring at the flames, wondering how a bunch of clipboard tyrants got far enough to file forged county records. The deeper I thought, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about my house. This was a process, a machine. They'd probably done this before. By morning, Caitlin had new intel. The map Whispering Ridge submitted? Total garbage. Different font families on the same line. A lot number added in shaky digital overlay. Obvious Photoshop work when you zoomed in. It had the county seal, badly cropped from a different document. We've got them, she said. But it's not enough to wave in front of a clerk. We need to go up the chain. DA's office. Maybe even AG. I'll take it as far as we have to. And Roy, she paused, then added, be careful. If they're desperate enough to fake legal documents, they might not stop there. I already knew that. And I'd already made sure the shotgun by the door was cleaned and loaded. 2 days after the fake map bombshell dropped, I woke up around 2 in the morning to a noise I couldn't quite place. It wasn't the usual shuffle of wind through pine or the occasional coyote yipping in the distance. This was mechanical, rhythmic, heavy, something industrial grinding its way up the trail. I rolled out of bed, still half asleep, grabbed a flashlight, and slipped on my boots. The second I opened the front door, I heard it. Diesel engine, low and grumbling. Then came the unmistakable sound of metal clinking against metal, chains. I switched off the porch light and moved around the side of the house, keeping low. The trees near the gate cast shadows long enough to hide in. That's when I saw the lights. 2 vehicles, a bulldozer on a flatbed trailer, and a pickup with orange construction lights flashing, but no insignia, no license plate on the front. A group of people were already out, 5 of them that I could count, all in reflective vests. One was holding a clipboard, another had bolt cutters. I recognized the same Karen from the first visit, her bleach blonde helmet of hair lit up in the glow of LED work lamps mounted to the truck. She was barking orders in a tone that made my spine tighten. Cut the gate and back the loader in. We start with the fence line, clear 20 feet, and the structure comes down in phase 2. A younger guy with a walkie muttered, ETA on second crew is under 90 minutes. I stood frozen for half a second. Then instinct kicked in. I moved fast back to the porch, grabbed my phone, and called the sheriff's office. Line picked up on the second ring. This is Roy Milner out on Forest Hollow Trail. I've got an active trespass in progress, heavy equipment, and multiple individuals attempting illegal demolition. Do they have a work order or legal permit? Nope. I've already got a pending injunction. HOA bullshit. They're trying to destroy my property. Get a unit out here now. Copy that. Deputies en route. ETA 25 minutes. I didn't wait. I flipped the main breaker on the exterior power panel, cutting floodlight control and making the whole property go dark, except for their own lamps. It worked. I watched them pause, scanning the house like it had disappeared. I used the time to get around behind the tool shed, closer to the gate, and activated my phone camera. Karen was yelling again. Get that post down. If we don't start by 3, it'll be daylight before we're done. Then, out of nowhere, the bolt cutter guy stumbled backward, dropping the tool. He was shouting something into his walkie. He's here! I saw someone, north fence! Karen turned on a dime, her voice sharp. Get back in the truck. If he confronts, don't engage. We don't need an incident. Just delay him. But it was too late. I stepped out from the shadows, flashlight aimed at them. You've got exactly 30 seconds to get off my land before you're face down and zip-tied. Karen tried to bluster through it, holding up a folder like it was a crucifix. This property is under community reclamation. We're within our rights to— No, you're not, I snapped. There's a court order banning you from setting foot within 300 feet of my boundary line, and I've got cameras recording everything. Now move. That's when I heard the best sound I'd heard in weeks. Sirens. Red and blue lights flickered through the trees, washing over the vehicles. The bulldozer driver killed the engine immediately. One of the workers took off into the woods. Karen froze like a deer in headlights. 2 sheriff's cruisers rolled up. Deputies jumped out, hands near their holsters but not drawn. Everybody stop what you're doing. Step away from the equipment. I raised my hands and pointed toward Karen. That's the ringleader, Whispering Ridge HOA. She's trespassing in violation of a court order. Deputy Nash, who I'd spoken to before, approached cautiously. Ma'am, do you have documentation for any of this activity? Karen tried. Oh, she tried. She opened the folder and pulled out a bunch of nonsense. Blurry copies of maps, a half-stamped zoning letter, and that same forged plat Caitlin had already shredded in her brief. Nash wasn't buying it. He called over one of the others, took photos of every document, and told the workers to stand down. One of the deputies picked up something I hadn't noticed. Someone had dropped a 2-way radio with the volume up. Static crackled. Then a voice came through, still live. Just cut the gate and dump the posts. Don't talk to the guy, just get it done. We'll file the papers after. The deputy looked at me. You mind if we keep this? Be my guest. Karen was trying to backtrack, telling the officers it was all a misunderstanding, a pre-scheduled maintenance job. The younger deputy turned to her and said, with a bulldozer, at 2 in the morning. They didn't arrest anyone on the spot. Technically, no major damage had been done, but they filed a full report, took everyone's information, and escorted the equipment off the property under threat of impoundment. Before she left, Karen tried one last bluff. You haven't heard the last of this, Mr. Milner. We're pursuing full retroactive jurisdiction. You're not untouchable. I stepped close enough to look her dead in the eye. No, but I am very, very patient. That morning, I emailed the sheriff's report, timestamps, video footage, and a transcript of the walkie-talkie audio to Caitlin. She called me an hour later. This is criminal trespass, attempted destruction of property, and conspiracy. We're filing charges first thing tomorrow. And just like that, the gloves came off. The next morning, Caitlin wasted no time. She filed 3 separate motions with the county court, one for contempt of court against the HOA board members for violating the restraining order, one for criminal trespass, and one emergency petition requesting judicial review of the forged cadastral map. By noon, I had a call from the county clerk's office confirming that the court had accepted the motions and scheduled a hearing within 10 days. But the real storm came 48 hours later. I was loading lumber onto my truck when I noticed a black SUV crawling up the trail, not the usual local deputy or nosy HOA rep. When the door opened, 2 men stepped out in suits. They introduced themselves as investigators from the Colorado State Attorney General's Office, Property Crimes Division. We've been forwarded documentation from a recent civil motion involving forged mapping and interference with real property. Mind if we take a look around and speak with you, Mr. Milner? I led them inside, gave them coffee, and laid everything out. The notarized deed, the auction packet, the GIS overlays from Caitlin's firm, and, most importantly, the altered version of the 1996 HOA boundary map versus the current county cadastral system. The older agent, a man named Howard, took one look at the map and muttered, Jesus, this isn't just fraud. This is institutional forgery. Whoever submitted this didn't even match the font weights. They asked if I still had the radio recovered from the night of the bulldozer attempt. I handed it over, and they played back the recording through a small analyzer. Static gave way to voices. A man's tone came through, calm, deliberate. Once the fence is cleared, level the outer posts and get the debris out. Keep lights off facing the ridge. Don't leave tire marks near the fire road. The other agent looked up at me. That's not your HOA president speaking. That's someone coordinating this like a covert job. I nodded. Sounds like more than Karen's pay grade. Howard made a note. We may be dealing with a broader pattern here. Has this community had other similar complaints in the past? Only rumors. But I'd bet money I'm not the first. By evening, the AG's office had pulled the property records of 15 surrounding parcels. I got a call later that night from Howard. "Mr. Milner, we're seeing a pattern. At least 3 other parcels show similar boundary restorations filed in the last 18 months, always linked to Whispering Ridge HOA. 2 were flipped to developers within 6 months of the filings. We're opening a criminal investigation. You'll be contacted for a formal deposition." That call came the next day. They booked a deposition slot at the county courthouse. Caitlin accompanied me. It felt surreal walking into that old paneled room, sitting across from a government lawyer and a stenographer, and laying out how I had watched my dream home nearly bulldozed by people using maps drawn up on Photoshop like it was 1892. I told them about the night attack, the walkie-talkie, the sheriff's reports, the shady plat submission. Every time I showed another piece of evidence, the stenographer paused to catch up. The attorney's expression changed from skeptical to stone-faced. "You understand," she said slowly, "that this could constitute racketeering if proven to be systematic." Caitlin nodded. "That's exactly what we're alleging." The attorney sighed, closed her file. "We'll be contacting the district attorney." Later that week, a subpoena was issued for Karen O'Brien and the entire Whispering Ridge HOA board to produce all documentation regarding land claims, boundary modifications, and communication with the county registry over the last 5 years. And just when I thought it couldn't escalate further, I got served again. But this time, it wasn't from them. It was a letter from the Department of the Interior. Apparently, one of the forged maps had been submitted with overlays that touched federally managed woodland. That opened a whole new can of worms. The letter stated, "Recent filings involving parcel redacted may indicate fraudulent boundary extension into federal easement territory. We are launching a federal review of this activity in conjunction with the Bureau of Land Management." I stared at the paper, then at Caitlin. They messed with federal land? She smiled slowly. They screwed up. Big. The next day, I bought new trail cameras. I mounted one in the tree facing the old fire road and another facing the ridgeline trailhead. I wasn't just protecting my house now. I was sitting on the epicenter of what could become a federal land fraud case. And I wasn't alone anymore. The air had shifted. After the subpoena hit Whispering Ridge HOA, things went quiet for a few days. Too quiet. Karen O'Brien didn't show up to the board office, and the HOA's usual parade of letters and threats suddenly stopped. But that only made me more alert. Silence from a bully is never peace. It's plotting. 2 nights later, around 3 a.m., one of my trail cameras pinged my phone. I sat bolt upright and opened the feed. 4 people in dark hoodies and gloves were walking along the ridgeline, one carrying what looked like a gas can, the others with tools. I grabbed my flashlight and ran out with my pistol holstered, not intending to use it, but not willing to take chances either. By the time I reached the edge of the clearing, they were already inside the fence line. One was sawing at a post. I shouted. They bolted, except one who slipped and fell on loose gravel. I caught up and pinned him down. A kid. Couldn't have been older than 19, sweating, eyes wide. "What the hell are you doing on my land?" He stammered. "They told me it was abandoned. I swear. Said no one lived here, that it was just scrap wood. I didn't buy it." I called the sheriff's office and held him there until deputies arrived. When they cuffed him, one recognized the last name. "He's Karen's nephew." Figures. The deputies logged the break-in as attempted vandalism. The other 3 got away, but the kid's phone was seized, and inside it, photos of my house, my cameras, GPS coordinates, messages from a group chat named Ridge OPS. Caitlin got wind of it and contacted the DA's office directly. 2 days later, subpoenas were issued for digital communications from multiple HOA board members. One included an email chain between Karen and a man named Devin Mallory, former real estate consultant, now under investigation for shady land flips. In the emails, Karen sent him scanned versions of forged plats and asked, "Will this be enough for the developer to proceed if we clear the squatter?" Squatter. That's what she called me. By the weekend, a mobile office from the state AG's office was set up at the local fire station. They'd made the case a priority, opening a task force. I was asked to testify in person at the upcoming evidentiary hearing, alongside 3 other landowners who'd also been targeted. Turns out, my case wasn't unique. I was just the one who fought back. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was packed. Karen O'Brien finally appeared, flanked by her attorney and 2 stone-faced board members. She looked furious and pale. As Caitlin presented the doctored plats, the radio transcript, the vandalism photos, and the walkie-talkie messages, you could feel the room turning. The judge reviewed the exhibits silently, then spoke. Based on the presented evidence and pending further criminal proceedings, this court grants a preliminary injunction against Whispering Ridge HOA. Effective immediately, no member or representative may enter, claim, or communicate authority over the property of Roy Milner. I exhaled slowly. For the first time in months, my land was protected, not by offense, but by law. The injunction changed everything. Suddenly, I wasn't just the guy shouting into the void. I had the court's backing. My mailbox stopped bleeding threats, and for the first time since this insanity began, I could swing a hammer without checking over my shoulder, but it wasn't over, not even close. Within a week, the DA filed official charges against Karen O'Brien and 2 Whispering Ridge board members for conspiracy to commit fraud, document tampering, and attempted land theft. Devin Mallory, the developer she'd been emailing, was subpoenaed next. Turns out he'd been quietly buying up foreclosed or disputed lots near Whispering Ridge for pennies, most of them mysteriously claimed as abandoned. Then came the twist no one saw coming. The county registrar's office launched an internal audit and discovered that 2 senior clerks, people who'd worked in land records for over a decade, had manually approved and logged the forged plats submitted by the HOA. One of them had recently taken out a second mortgage. The money trail didn't lie. With the pressure mounting, one of the arrested board members cut a deal and started talking. What unraveled was bigger than just my lot. It was a long-running scheme. Whispering Ridge HOA had been operating a shadow plan for years, identifying land that had fallen into disuse or changed hands through inheritance or auction, then slipping those parcels into restored boundaries using doctored maps. Once declared part of the HOA, they'd harass or sue until the owner gave up or settled cheap. The plan was called RECAP in their internal notes. Recover, enclose, claim as property. I wasn't just an unlucky target. I was a wrench in the engine. State investigators set up interviews with nearly a dozen affected landowners. 2 had already sold under pressure. One elderly woman broke down crying when she learned her eviction had been based on falsified documents. Another couple from Denver came forward with drone footage of HOA members erecting fences on land that wasn't theirs. At Caitlin's urging, I agreed to testify before a state property law commission reviewing HOA abuse. The hearing was broadcast online and picked up by local and national outlets. I didn't sugarcoat it. I walked them through the entire ordeal, from the first Jeep on my ridge to the midnight sabotage. When I played the audio from the walkie-talkie, the room went dead silent. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. Karen was officially indicted on 7 felony counts. The 2 clerks from the registrar's office were suspended pending trial. Devin Mallory fled the state but was apprehended in Arizona. And Whispering Ridge HOA. They held an emergency board vote, tried to install a new president, but the damage was done. Half the neighborhood demanded dissolution. The HOA attorney resigned mid-hearing. That night, as I sat on the edge of the deck I'd built with my own hands, beer in hand, I watched the stars crawl across the sky and thought, maybe this fight wasn't just mine. Maybe it was overdue. I didn't expect the final blow to come from a spreadsheet. 3 weeks after my testimony, the Attorney General's office released a comprehensive investigative report. It was over 200 pages long and read like a crime novel. Only I was in it. My parcel was Exhibit C, Milner Lot Incident. They traced every forged map, every edited metadata tag, every backdated signature the HOA had submitted. I read through it 3 times, highlighting phrases like deliberate pattern of racketeering activity and systemic abuse of landowner rights. The court set a trial date, but Karen O'Brien didn't make it that far. The week before opening statements, she took a plea deal, 17 years in federal prison, no parole for at least 10. She broke in court, sobbing about just wanting to protect property values. Her co-conspirators, 2 HOA board members and the registrar's clerks, each got between 8 and 14 years. Devin Mallory was fined into oblivion and barred from doing business in the state of Colorado. The HOA was dissolved by court order. They auctioned off its remaining assets, bank accounts, common areas, even their ridiculous little HOA-branded SUV. The money was used to compensate victims. I received $840,000, which barely touched the emotional cost, but it covered every expense, plus enough to finish my house with real windows, solar, and a proper metal roof. I also got legal title recognition from the county, stamped, sealed, and logged with the state. No one was ever going to question that land again. I thought that would be the end of it. But stories like mine don't stay quiet anymore. My testimony went viral. The firemen versus the HOA ran on the evening news. Then again, in a Netflix documentary 2 months later, people started writing me. Veterans, retirees, families in fights of their own. Some angry, some scared, some just looking for advice. I couldn't ignore them, so I didn't. I started a small workshop on my ridge, at first just to teach basic construction to other injured firefighters or vets. But word spread, and soon we were pouring footings, framing walls, telling stories while we worked. Not everyone could build a house, but everyone left a little stronger than when they came. And me? I finally finished the cabin, my own hands. No contractors this time, just me, and sometimes a buddy or two from the ridge. We raised the last wall in silence. No cameras, no noise. The gate at the front has a new sign now, burnt into red cedar with an old firebrand tool I found at a salvage yard. It reads, "Private property, no trespassing, no excuses." But beneath that, in smaller letters, it says, "Welcome if you've come to build something.